there, folks. My name's NovaWing24, and welcome to another grumpy episode of your favourite cantankerous simmers, the Three Grumpy Simmers. So we are back for a possibly more positive episode, or at least perhaps less grumpy episode. I don't know. We'll see how the episode turns out. It's always a bit of an interesting thing that pans out through these. Though I must admit, we were not as technically challenged this week, this month, as we have been in the past. So that's always a good start. May have just jinxed us. I'm not sure. But anyway, of course, before we get into our topic this week, I am joined by my two other fellow grumpy simmers. Of course, I am joined by Sergio from helisimmer.com.
Hey guys.
And of course, I am joined by the purple hat wearing Tomcat aficionado, Belgiode.
I'm gonna need Alfred Hitchcock over in my neighborhood. Those damn birds outside are freaking killing me. It's 5:20 in the morning, and these guys won't shut up.
See, you know,
I hate spring.
I
hate spring.
You could always get out on a bike, go for a beautiful morning ride as the sun comes up.
The sun's not even up. The sun knows better than to be up at this time. What the hell am I doing up? Oh,
so
my
it's just
God.
me that's crazy to do that. Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
Alright, so we've got a topic of kind of interest at the moment. So over the last, it's actually very interesting for the three of us who've been around the simulation genre for quite a significant number of years for all three of us, to see the significant technology pivot that has happened in probably only, and I would dare say probably only the last 4 years. And of course, the technology that, of course, I'm talking about is virtual reality. Now, virtual reality, not that long ago, was something that was in the realm of science fiction. You would see it in a science fiction movie, 50 years from now or something would happen. And yet, very much now, it is an everyday part of our lives. Everything from the Oculus Rift and then the HTC Vive through to augmented reality and using things like augmented reality games like, heaven forbid, that thing called doing small creatures into tiny balls, as well as doing other various activities and the pathways it has for learning, which of course is something that, for me, is very near and dear to my heart. So, as more and more of the community has accepted VR and VR has become more mainstream, it's been a thing of note to see developers of the platforms, our major platforms, both X-Plane 11 and Prepared, being able to modify their platforms for VR. But of course, we've got the one that's designed essentially for VR from the ground up, which is of course Aerofly FS2. Along with these platform changes and the platform improvements, of course, comes the requirement for many people who want to actually know, is their hardware that they have right now going to support this amazing new technology, or are they going to need to upgrade it? And of course, that's what we want to sort of focus on this episode today, because we have got two very, these two gentlemen above me are great experts and have been using VR for a number of years now, whereas I myself have been a bit more of a stick in the mud. I'm still sticking with my more traditional track IR at the moment. Although I have used mixed reality as part of my everyday, my actual work. So we want to bring this episode to you all because it is something. I know, Drew, you've mentioned this quite a lot of the times that we see, these questions being asked about, is our hardware going to come across it? So we're going to have a look at this from both a software development perspective and, of course, from a hardware perspective. So we can go through, see where the capabilities are and where we can actually go, and some of the best advice that these two experts can give us all. So speaking of, we're going to throw to our sort of resident software engineer in the group here. I'm going to throw to you, Sergio, because I did allude to the fact that we have we've got of the three sort of platforms out there at the moment. Two of them are very, very much have embraced VR, where we have, four, Digital Combat Simulator, DCS World, is another platform, I'm sorry, and it has embraced VR very much so. But the two main ones that have embraced VR, of course, are X-Plane 11 and Aerofly FS2. And I know that you've been wanting to sort of you've noted some engineering and software programming uniqueness to those two platforms.
Yeah, it's called Vulkan. With a K, guys. It's not Vulkan with a C. It's Vulkan with a K. Yeah.
You knew it was coming, man. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm not even tracking into that. Anyway. Actually,
And yeah, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, I remember, I think it was probably about 2 or 3, I think it was about 3 years ago. You sent me a demo of the Vulkan API, and that thing just
Yeah,
looked crazy. And now we're developing with it.
It's
yeah,
still crazy. It hasn't
still crazy.
changed. It's just that people are starting to understand it a little bit better now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, and what's Vulkan? Vulkan is basically an API that allows software like such as X-Plane and Aerofly FS2 and anything that needs graphical interfaces to, well, speak with the graphics card or with the graphics card drivers. Um, this is kind of like OpenGL, which everybody has heard about for many years. It's a new API developed by a consortium of companies, a lot of them which are behind OpenGL. And what they are trying to do with Vulkan is to allow the new generation of hardware, which has been evolving for the past years, to actually use their full potential in any applications that requires graphics. And in this case, games or oh no, I said games. I'm sorry, flight simulators.
Okay, I'm going to interject by saying
Roll it
they
back
are
a sec.
games.
Roll it back
End,
a sec.
end of the conversation. They are games. I feel the
Yeah,
hate comments coming already, but they're games. Moving on. Anyway,
well,
moving on.
let's put it this way.
Hold on a
Anything that
sec now.
works.
Roll it back just a second. Let's pretend that
I
our
just
audience is not as technically inclined as, say, the three of us. Can you please define the following words for our audience, or acronyms, as the case may be? API.
Mm.
What is an API? And
yeah,
what is OpenGL, and why should they know it?
And why should they care?
well, well, API it's an application programming interface. What it means is that it's a piece of software to which other pieces of software can connect and either interact solely with what the API does. It can be an API, for example, for a program that performs credit card transactions, for example, or in this case, this is something that communicates with the game engine and with your graphics card. So it's kind of like the middleman between your graphics card and the game engine or simulator engine or any other engine, and tells your graphics card to behave in a certain way. Okay, OpenGL it's the same thing. It's an API. It's a very old API. It does its work. But the thing is, since it's a very old API and it has a lot of legacy stuff inside it, it's not very fast. It's not very performant right now. Okay, and it's not like you should know about this because let's be honest, most of the guys don't even know what's behind the scenes, and they still use their games or their sims. But what's important for this conversation and for the development of the technology is to understand that OpenGL is old. OpenGL is something legacy, and Vulkan promises to fix and improve on a lot of different things that OpenGL is not able to right now. For example, Vulkan will allow you to use your multi-core CPUs to actually aid your graphics card doing its work. So, so in theory, the
So
more
I can actually
CPUs
use
are
all 12 cores of my damn CPU and the
I
hard
you
drive.
can
know.
actually use.
Shocking, isn't it?
Yes. Here's the thing: a lot of the guys nowadays, get a great CPU, get a great graphics card, boot up X-Plane or DCS or whatever, and if they go to Task Manager and see the graphics on their CPU usage and GPU usage, on older GPUs you can max out the GPU and the CPU will be very comfortable. But if you have a very high-end graphics card and CPU, you'll probably tend to notice that both the CPU and the GPU are very lazy in the fact that you are not using the full potential of any of those. The CPU, it's probably using like 40% of its power, and the GPU sometimes is using less than 50% in some cases. I've seen some cases in which, the graphics card is just taking a walk on the beach, very comfortable and very, just relaxing and chilling out.
It's sipping mojitos at the swim up bar when it should be actually
Right.
out, like walking
Yeah,
for it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And the thing is, with Vulcan, since Vulcan uses the multi, the, all the, well, yeah, all the cores in the CPU, two things are going to happen. Your CPU is going to be more loaded with stuff, and since it will be more loaded with stuff, it will be able to communicate with your GPU and send more stuff to the GPU for it to actually, work its magic. What may happen is that if you have a very powerful CPU, let's say, for example, if you have a 12-core CPU, you might get to a point in which your GPU is stressed out, working 100% all the time, but your CPU is kind of chilling out and not actually using all the 12 CPUs, or it's using all the 12 CPUs, but at a lower threshold. This brings new bottlenecks to the equation. But the thing is, this is not actually a bad thing because it adds new bottlenecks to the equation, but at a very much higher threshold. You have a lot more performance, and you will use more performance from your CPUs and GPUs.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
I know from my limited understanding is that one of the challenges that we always had faced, especially in the flight simulation genre,
Mm-hmm.
even pre VR days, is that we'd always have this disconnect between CPU capabilities and graphics card capabilities, and there was always this challenge where up until very very recently, essentially, unless it was your single core, your core zero, that was that controlled your flight sim's performance, rightly or wrongly. That's what controlled it. It didn't matter how good a graphics card you had, how much RAM you had, how many cores you had. It was core zero. If that sucked, or if that got maxed out, then that was a pain for everything. And we've seen this slowly evolve. And it sounds like the Vulkan API is definitely working and leveraging on that, because some of the early VRs also suffer from a lot of graphical stutters. So it sounds like it's being able to leverage off that greater, spreading that requirement across a greater number of resources to maximize the use of resources and make it a more effective technology. So,
It is, but it's not a silver bullet. Okay. Now here's the thing. Let me just back up here a second. I did some testing. I think this was the test that I sent you, Tristan. I did some testing with the Vulkan API. The Vulkan API is out there, and there are graphic drivers that use the Vulkan API. As far as I remember, the newest generation of drivers for NVIDIA or for AMD already come with Vulkan drivers. Now, this doesn't mean that you are using Vulkan on your games or your sims, because the game or the sim has to support Vulkan. Okay.
Right.
An example is, for example, Airfly LFS2. You can actually go to settings and turn the Vulkan API on. Laminar Research is working for some time on adding Vulkan to X-Plane, and it said that it's coming in this iteration of X-Plane. This iteration meaning this major version of X-Plane. So it's
11
going to,
basically
yeah,
instead of 12.
We won't have to wait until the X-Plane 12 for us to be able to use it.
I'm just going to interrupt you, Sergio, and say for anybody who just picked that up, we know nothing about if or when X-Plane 12 will come out, so please don't ask.
No one knows.
Release date.
No one knows. Yeah.
Sorry,
No one knows.
I'm just going to tell you the same thing I always say.
Yeah, no one knows. And the fact is, not even Laminar Research knows about it. Okay? So, yeah, don't ask us. And yeah, I think Drew is right. Back to the demo thing. I tried the demo some time ago, which used OpenGL and Vulkan. And now let me do this huge disclaimer. The numbers that I'm going to tell you about right now are not the numbers that you're going to have on your sim. Okay? Let me just repeat that. The numbers I'm going to talk right now about are not the numbers you're going to have in the sim. Okay? Can you just put not the numbers in the... Yeah,
these are not the numbers you're looking for.
Yes.
Yes. Can you please do that? Thank you. Okay. So I ran the test, and the test was very simple. It was just a bunch of fish, swimming around in the ocean, and I was able to place hundreds of thousands of fish, swimming around, and I had on some occasions over 100% more performance in Vulkan than I had in OpenGL. Now, again, this is not going to happen in your sim or your game. Okay, it's not going to happen. Um, if you ask me what's the performance increase that we should expect for in a game or a sim, I don't know. If you ask Climate Research about it and they're working on it, they don't know. They actually don't know. Ben
Mm-hmm.
Ben Supnik has talked about this several times, and they are still internal testing. They are actually, I'm sorry, and they are actually working on replacing the API. They're not just plugging the APIs, they're not just making layers and now we have explaining, we have OpenGL, and then we just put another plug here for Vulkan. They are actually
Mm-hmm.
doing it the right way. That's why it's taking them so long to do it. And Bennett has told us several times he has no idea what the performance increase will be. I was with Marty Aaron a couple of months ago, maybe a bit more, in Madrid, and I had to ask him. I told him, Marty, I know you don't know anything about it. You guys are very transparent regarding what you are doing and regarding development. Ben already told us about this. But since some weeks have gone since Ben posted this blog post about Vulkan, and this moment right now in which we are face to face talking about it. Um, what's the word on Vulkan? What do you guys know about Vulkan and Ben's progress and the performance? Because everybody's is asking about the performance. I don't know, dozens of guys asking me through private messages or emails about explaining Vulkan, and he said,
Just on Facebook alone.
yeah, and he told me the same. Sergio, I have no idea. We have no idea.
Mm.
We are doing this because we know it's going to be good. Do not expect, this is not his words, it's my words now. Do not expect the first version, the first iteration to be amazing, because remember, these guys are still learning about the API.
Mm-hmm.
So they are adding it to the sim, and then at a later stage, and Vulkan itself will improve it. Vulkan started with version 1.0, of course, and it's now in version 1.1. So it's going, both the API and both Explain are going to evolve. Now,
Everything's evolving, yeah.
yeah, having this said, this is not going to be a silver bullet. I see a lot of guys, stressing out, going all crazy because they want Vulkan, they want Vulkan, they want Vulkan. Guys, may actually not do anything at all for you. That's the
Mm-hmm.
thing, because if you have, let's say for Explain, Explain's best example is the one that you were talking about. Aerofly FS2 is using Vulkan for a long time, so most of the people use Explain anyway, and we're waiting for Explain, which is the next sim with Vulkan embedded. Here's the thing: if you're already having 60 frames per second, 70 frames per second, 80 frames per second, I'm not going to tell you to expect double that. I'm not going to tell you to expect 120 frames per second instead of 60.
Yeah.
That is not going to happen. That is not feasible. That is not possible. That's not going to happen. Not right now, at least. And
Not
not
to
for some
mention,
time.
it's not advisable. Even the developers of Explain are saying that on average you should be seeing about 30. Any more than that, and you're basically not using your computer to its full extent.
that's been a known flight sim thing, is always capping it at 30.
Right.
So and I take your point, Sergio, that it's not a silver bullet, and especially for those who are experiencing with great frame rates, great experiences, it's great. But Vulkan, of course, does give you improvement on existing hardware, and sort of
Mm-hmm.
for those who may not have the top end hardware, it'll give that improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, that's something that's coming. So, as you pointed out, Aerofly FS2 users already have it. So, people who do want to do a comparison
Makes a
can
difference. Yep.
You can switch inside of Aerofly FS2, and I must admit that I personally will always run FS2 inside of Vulkan with Vulkan, because it does improve it significantly for me personally.
It is a major improvement. Yeah.
But I guess I also want to pick up on that. So that's our sort of our future. And, uh,
It
Hmm.
is, yeah.
and Drew just sort of picked up where I'm sort of heading with this. Is that Vulcan is the future. But yeah, the future in a way the future is here now with the fact of VR. Now I believe Sergio that you and Drew are both HTC Vive users. I believe.
Nope.
No, 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 no.
He's HTC Vive. I am using the Oculus Rift. This is the CV1, which is the current one that's on the market, which, believe it or not, has already been discontinued in favor of the new, what is it called? The Rift S.
Hmm.
Supposedly, it's like a newer design or whatnot. It's slightly better, and I'm on the fence. If I do end up getting it, it's probably going to be primarily to review it as compared to the original CV1 that's out there. But the reason why I popped that up is because one of the major advantages that I think people are going to see once basically all the flight sims have migrated over towards Vulkan is in the performance with this thing. A lot of you know already that, I am one of the major admins for the VR Aviators group in Facebook. The link will probably be popping up at some point in time. That's literally one of the number one things that we get asked. What do I need to run VR? And while, all three of us will probably go through and give you all the various hardware that is going to make it better, unless you're planning on only using Aerofly FS2, you're not going to get the optimal experience just yet with VR. And that's not due to the hardware. That's not due to the fact that, we're still waiting for greater resolution or FOV or any of that kind of stuff. It has a lot to do with what Sergio was talking about. The software isn't quite there yet, in particular with X-Plane 11. Until X-Plane 11 has Vulkan completely implemented, yeah, you're going to expect to see really low FPS. If you're one of the lucky ones that's able to get higher FPS, more power to you. As soon as you add this thing into the equation, cut your FPS by half, basically.
Yeah. And if you start adding a lot of stuff that makes explain pretty, you'll suffer a lot. You'll have a
Yeah.
lot. You'll be disappointed. Yeah, you'll be disappointed.
I guess actually that now that you mentioned that, it's a point that probably to leverage off right there is that um, pretty much every piece of hardware that's out at the moment for PCs, whether it be Nvidia or AMD, pretty much all of it is VR ready. And
Yeah.
as long as you have a decent i5 or i7 processor, you will have, in theory, no problems running with VR. So in many ways, the biggest roadblock to stepping into VR actually is the end user yourself. So yourself as the end user. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and because Sergio, I specifically going to leverage off what you just said there of the making it pretty. Um, so when you want to and that's something that rightly or wrongly the flight sim community has been very much known for driving, for better textures, for
Mm-hmm.
more immersive
Yeah.
experiences with crap tons of AI, and you want to have trees that move, their individual leaves,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
stuff like
want it
that.
so real I can see the neighbor's dog in there.
Exactly. Um, but the point is, folks, is that all comes at a cost.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think now don't get me wrong, 64-bit simulators moving to 64-bit, and I'll probably Sergio might have to throw you to this one for here. That improvement of going from a 32-bit architecture to a 64-bit architecture unlocks a memory. Was it a memory cap?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a RAM cap. Yeah, memory. You can use with 32-bit software. You can about 5 gigabytes of memory, and with the 64-bit environment, not just the sim but the environment, because your operating system also has to be 64 bits. There are still 32-bit operating systems out there. Windows still has a 32-bit option. You still need to have a 64-bit environment, and in theory you have no limits, because we're talking about a huge number of memory that can be used. That's the main thing. Yes,
So
it's not. It doesn't make the sim prettier.
yeah,
One of the guys, yeah.
And that's again, that was a big point, and I remember that with the whole there was commentary about that, and this was made with both X-Plane and with Flight Sim World, and when prepared when it eventually went to 64-bit
Hmm.
as well, when it was sort of the last one to the party, as it were. Um, that 64-bit itself doesn't make it prettier, but what it does do is it
But
means that your system resources has your the flight sim your simulator has access to more of your computer's resources, so it can start displaying things more. But it still has a cost. So it's just something to be aware of, folks, is that as you're making this jump to VR, and as I said, I will happily own the fact that I currently do not use VR. I
you
am
should. But you should.
I know, but I like my three 40-inch monitors and my track IR. What can I say? Um, so, but yeah, but seeing the two of you both working with your VR headsets, and the content you're producing, and is how natural it is. And as I said, I work with VR and mixed reality for work, and seeing the applications, and one of the things that we always talk about is using simulators for an experience, as real as it gets, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, that having that immersive factor is great, but just be aware, folks, that the biggest barrier to you moving into this VR space isn't going to be your CPU. It's not going to be your graphics card, because if either of those are less than 3 years old, I can almost guarantee that you can run
It'll
VR.
work.
I can almost guarantee it. Um, your biggest barrier to you moving into VR is yourself. And I guess that's something to really think about here, folks. Is that think about what is it that you want out of your sim. And I think I remember
Hmm.
we've discussed this at various functionalities of this show over the dear God, it's almost 2 years we've been doing this. My God. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, so we somebody hasn't fired me off the internet yet. My God. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
Well, some guys have tried.
true. Um, so folks, just think about what is it that you want out of your simulation experience,
Hmm.
because if you
Yeah.
want something that's all about the pretties and the shinies, and all power to you. If that's what you want out of your simulator experience, then all power to you. Believe me, graphical fidelity is absolutely gorgeous of some of the modules that are coming out these days, and some of the add-ons that we can get from various other, the scenery add-ons and texture add-ons, whatever we can get. But just bear in mind that those have a significant cost when you move to
Hmm.
VR. Um, and again, returning back to Sergio's point of the silver bullet, Vulkan will not be the silver bullet that will cure that. It will, again, it'll, just like 64-bit, it will alleviate it, it will give you more space to breathe, but eventually, you put enough stuff in there, you'll slow your sim down.
Yeah, it's gonna get to you. Yep.
But
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah,
Right
it's
now,
a
the hardware is definitely there, though. I will say that there's so
it,
many options out there right now that people can get that will at least help them get into VR. Just remember that, you're gonna want to read up on everything and, watch all the various YouTube videos to figure out how to best optimize it based on the software and the hardware that we have available right now. As everything evolves, it'll get a heck of a lot easier. But like, for new people coming in, if you're thinking about getting like the Rift S, I actually suggest it as a good starting place because it will give you just straight out of the box everything that you need to make sims like Airfly FS2 Shine or DCS World or even X-Plane, given of course what we've been discussing, the caveat with X-Plane, the fact that they're still working on getting to where Airfly is right now and so on. And even P3D. I will gladly check off P3D.
version
They've come
4,
a long
version
way. Version 4.5 in particular has come a long way.
And
yeah,
and just
it's
probably a caveat just for folks following along at home. I don't know how many of you are still using. I mean, I feel like sometimes I'm the only one still using preferred V3, but like I do have 4.5 as well, but I have V3 installed as well. So V3 and below are prepared, and FSX do not play well with VR. Fly Inside make a excellent plugin that will give you VR in those platforms, but it is Drew. I remember your experience with it was mixed.
Yeah, but I think part of the problem that I was having is my hardware was not completely up to snuff at that time. And since I have upgraded, of course, for the most part, Flying Side has been obsolete. Granted, they have their own sim now, but it's still gaining traction. So I really can't say for sure, how their product stacks up with the native capabilities that the programs that they used to interface for now have.
VR wise, I can tell you that VR wise, it's very good.
Yeah, fine. So
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I have a copy. I've been helping them with the helicopter
Oh, you mean the actual
sim.
sim itself?
The
Okay.
actual
Yeah, I was
sim, the
referring
actual
to the,
sim. It's
the app.
no, I'm actually referring to the actual sim.
Okay.
They're doing a great job. They're
I
actually
was going to say
doing great.
it had gone a little bit quiet on that front, so it definitely sounds like it's come a long way from the first initial version that Drew and I
Hmm.
looked at Flight SimCon a
Years
couple of
ago
years
now.
ago. Because
It's not.
I will be honest. When I looked at that, I literally went, "There is a lawsuit waiting to happen," and I walked away. Um, but it sounds like it's come a
Uh,
long way, which I'm impressed with.
Kinda. It's pretty much yeah. You can pretty much look at it and still expect lawsuits. Um, I know what you mean. I don't know what you mean, but it's they're working on a lot of different stuff right now, and they are not, as far as I understood, they are not completely happy and not completely done with the way everything looks. So it will change in the future. They're still developing it. They haven't released it as a final product, so I would expect things to change and improve. There's a lot of room for improvement. It's obviously work in progress. It's obviously
Hmm.
I wouldn't even call it um, an alpha version right now. It's somewhat of an alpha version. It still needs a lot of features to be finished and to be added up to the sim. So there's a lot of work to still to be done, but the VR experience is very good, and they are working on it. They are actually actively. Dan is working on it like crazy,
Well,
and
we
there
can
are
probably
updates.
ask him.
That's
We
positive.
can
Yeah.
probably ask him in less than a month because I can almost guarantee you he'll be at Flight Sim Expo in
Oh
Orlando.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Um,
The-
all right, folks. Well, that's rounds
Let me,
up our
let me
discussion. Oh, sorry. Yep.
yeah. I'm sorry, Tristan. I just wanted to add something to the fact that we were talking about hardware and VR. I just want to tell a bit of my experience in
Of
terms
course.
of the hardware I use. That's the thing, because we are going to have folks asking us, which hardware are you using?
Hmm.
And more than Drew, which has a very nice setup, my setup is not as good as his. I'm still using an NVIDIA 1060, okay, the GTX at 1060, not even the TI. Um, Core i7 7700, not the K1, not the unlocked one. So I have nothing overclocked. It's all stock, and I can still have a good experience or a decent experience with VR. It's a bit harder for me in DCS as soon as I start adding more units. But I'm one of those
Hmm.
guys. I'm one of those heretic guys that use DCS for civilian use. I just grab the MI8
Hey,
or the UE and
hey.
fly around.
I
Yeah,
actually,
it
actually,
happens.
I would love to see proper the sling loading and firefighting missions in DCS for the Huey and the MI8. I think that would be cool.
You have sling loading. You have very good sling
I know the
inside.
sling loading physics were improved in a couple of updates ago. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I'd like to
Yeah,
see like
it
things like
was.
firefighting and like search
we
and
need
rescues.
firefighting. Yeah, that we that we need. Yeah,
I'm
that we need.
just picturing like I've just got this idea, and Baltic Dragon, if you want, you can hit me up for royalties on this if you want. But I just had this idea of like a mission off Dubai. We have like an oil tanker is like collides with like a pleasure yacht or something, and you've got to go. Part of the mission is you've got to go rescue some sultan off the pleasure yacht, and another one is you've got to like use
Mm.
a 412 to actually, or the Huey to actually sort of dump firefighting foam on top of this tanker. So Baltic Dragon, hey, if you want to create that, happy to reference you.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
that would be cool. That would
Is
be cool.
that a
But
part of
that's
Raven One's story? Because if it's a part of the Raven One story, then it's probably going to be coming because that's what Baltic Dragon's working on right now.
Well, I might just pick up on that actually as we round out. Good point there. So, and I guess folks, that shows that Sergio, Sergio has just your stock entry level hardware, not
Yeah.
even stuff that's custom for flight sim.
Right.
Whereas Drew, I know your hardware is a bit more custom for flight sims. You're a bit more beefy that you've updated to since moving to VR.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got the K series, the i7. Mine is actually a hex core because honestly, I don't think I need much more than the hex core. It's more the speed, the actual megahertz of your processor than the number of cores that it has that's going to determine how quickly or how efficiently VR and stuff like that'll work. So as fast as you can get it is always good. As far as RAM, I've got 32 gigs RAM in there right now. I want to say it's 3200, what is it, megahertz, something like that. That right now is pretty much the industry standard. If you're going to get something, make sure you're getting like 16 to 32. At the
Yeah.
bare minimum, 16 if you're planning on doing stuff like DCS, because DCS, just like Sergio was saying, as soon as you start adding units, it will eat your RAM for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and come back for midnight snack. Graphics card. Yeah, what Sergio had, the NVIDIA 1060, I would say that's pretty much the baseline. Anything higher than that. And for those of you guys that are immediately thinking, well, what about the 2070 or the 2080? Listen to me. If it's higher than 1060, numerically speaking, it's going to work. Especially the 20 series, they're going to work for VR a hell of a lot better.
I'd roll that down to the 1050 series. The 1050 series was designed from the ground up for VR, so I'd say the 1050.
Yeah, it's borderline. Yeah, it will work. It will definitely work. I'll give you that. It's
The 1050
just not going to be as pleasant an experience as say getting
Yeah.
a 1080 or a 2070 or
No.
something like that.
I,
If you're a Radeon guy like I am, you want either the RX 480 and up. That's what I'm currently have right now, but I'm actually looking on getting the Radeon 7, which is 16 gigs of RAM on board. That honestly is what everybody should be shooting for, is between 8 and 16 gigs of RAM on your graphics card, because especially once we get the capabilities that Vulkan has to offer, we are going to need it.
And
Yeah.
that's a big point about I think a lot of people make a mistake sometimes, and I'll own when I first started tinkering with PC hardware, I did this as well. Is you buy for what you have now, you buy for what you want now. Buy future-proof yourself. Buy something. It might be a bit more. If you have the resources to do it, think about
If you can, yeah.
what's coming, because that's what you want to be gearing for. So for myself, for example, although I don't use VR at the moment, my application, my usage is a bit more distributed. So I run a 12 core, but I run the K series, so it's overclocked. Nominally it starts at 2.9. I've overclocked mine to 4.6. And I'm running 12 cores, and I distribute them through for various purposes that I have. And then I'm running dual 1080s. But for me, I have reasons for that for various other work that I do beyond flight simulation. So it's about, and I bought those when they first came out. I spent a lot of money, but it's going to serve me well long into the future. So, so for everyone,
And like all bits of technology, prices are going to come down over time. So, that's something to think of as well. There's always deals. If you can find something really good at a really good price, get it. Don't sit on the fence talking about, well, wait for the next gen. No, get it now.
If you wait for the next gen, you will never buy anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you'll be always waiting for the next gen. That's the thing.
And because
Yeah.
graphics cards and CPUs are evolving so quickly at the moment, and have been for the last couple of years, that literally if you wait a month, you've got something that's already out and better. So yeah, it's a few options for you, a few things to think about. So we hope that we've given you some food for thought, folks. So thanks very much for joining us on the 3 not so grumpy simmers on this episode. It's been great with you. This, I believe, will probably be our last episode before these two gentlemen above me get to share a beer together, or share a drink together over at FS Expo in Orlando. I am mucho jealous of both of you. Unfortunately, I was not able to get over there this year. It was a close run thing, but unfortunately I was not able to get there this year. So I wish you both gentlemen both best of luck, folks. Don't forget to look for both of these two during the FS Expo if you are going. If you haven't secured ticket yet, I'll pop the link into the show for the website for their in the description below. Highly recommend the show. I've known the team that's behind FS Expo for many years. It's a great expo, great opportunity for everybody. So really looking forward to hopefully one day getting there myself, but otherwise living vicariously through these two gentlemen. So and don't forget to look for Drew's Vox Populi discussions that he loves to have with everybody. So make sure you're there for that. And of course, Sergio, I believe you are actually presenting a seminar while you are there.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Nervous much?
Here a little bit here.
There's a public supermarket down the street from the hotel. If you all want, I can get you 2-for-1 discounts on Rotten Tomatoes. We can introduce him to my friend Florida Man.
Yes. Well, I love Drew. Just yeah. He knows how to cheer a guy up. It's just there to support me. Yeah.
You're gonna have fun, man. You're gonna have fun.
Yeah,
I
it's
will
going
show
to
you
be-
everything.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah, but I'm going to do a presentation. Yeah, about imagine that helicopters, and also actually it's not about helicopters. It's you know I would say it's something to help you start using helicopters in the flight simulator. I'll talk about hardware, a bit about hardware, about software, what to choose, etc., etc. To tell a bit about my story, and give the people there some hints and some tips about how to start using them. Not so much about what controllers do what and what controllers don't do what, but more about how to actually get inside helicopter flight simulation with the stuff you already have.
And let me tell you, I am really glad you're coming because traditionally, when I go to these things, every single rotor head seeks me out. They see the hat and they're like, he flies helicopters. Now I can go, that's the guy right there. Leave me the hell alone. I'll be at the bar.
All right, folks. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode. Don't forget, as I said, look for these two grumpy simmers at Flight Sim Expo. Folks, it's been great to have you on board this episode. Look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget, finally, to round out, thank you very much to Sergio from helisimmer.com.
Thank you, guys. See you.
And thank you very much to my colleague and fellow Tomcat aficionado, Drew Belgiode.
Alrighty, folks. See you in Orlando. If you're not coming to Orlando, I will see you online. We will live stream it. Ciao.
So don't forget, folks, to head over to helisimmer.com and also to helisimmer.com's YouTube channel as well, and check out some awesome videos from my friend Belgiode and his channel as well. And while you're here as well, don't forget to give my channel a bit of a like and have a view as well. And don't forget, as always, folks, to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying these videos and want to see more. And of course, as always, you can catch up with all of us on our various Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts whenever in between. Alright, folks, thanks very much for joining the Three Grumpy Simmers. We'll catch you next time. Bye for now.